Today, we're diving into a major concern for all Canadians, the economy's growing debt crisis. Our guest here today is Gwyn Morgan, respected business leader and longtime C2C contributor. In his latest article, Oh Canada, Our Nation's Looming Fiscal Abyss, he argues that Canada's soaring government spending and ballooning debt are putting our economy and our future at serious risk. Gwyn, thank you so much for joining us here today. It's great to have you.
Good to be here.
So in Gwyn's article, he outlines how serious Canada's fiscal outlook has become. Federal debt has exploded to $1.2 trillion, almost double from the years we've seen previously. Interest payments are expected to reach $70 billion annually by year 2029. The federal government is spending more than $55 billion $555 billion this year, including major boost for defense. And at the same time, Canada is seeing zero economic growth, declining productivity, and falling GDP per capita. Morgan warns that this isn't just about bad policy, it's a threat to our credit rating, economic competitiveness, and long-term prosperity. So Gwyn, let's get into the questions about your article here. So you warn of a fiscal abyss. What triggered your alarm bells about Canada's debt situation?
Well, first of all, let me say to tell you that when you look at the name of the article, it was Oh Canada. That's OWE.
Yes, very clever.
Yes. Well, in a lot of ways, eventually countries go bankrupt if they continue to spend more than they take in. And there is a kind of a unwritten rule, or maybe even a written one, that when your debt to GDP gets to 90% or higher, you're basically you're kind of at the mercy of the international market systems to continue to support the country. Mm-hmm. And we're heading towards that direction.
Yeah.
And the problem is, of course, that we're not doing anything about it. It's like having a family that's getting deeper and deeper in debt. Mm-hmm. And they're spending a heck of a lot more than they're taking in, but they're not doing any more work to earn more. Mm-hmm. And basically, whether you're a person or a country, the rules are kind of the same. Yeah. It just takes longer to go bankrupt for a country than it does for a person.
Absolutely. Well, you talk about the fact that Canada's debt has nearly doubled over successive governments. In your opinion, who is the most responsible for this escalation?
Well, of course, the guy that was in the prime minister's chair for 15 years, mm-hmm. and Trudeau kept on running up the deficit higher and higher, and by the time he got finished, he started off saying he was going to run small deficits of maybe $10 billion a year for the first 3 years and then balance it. What he actually did was put in deficits each year that ended up doubling our national debt by the time he stepped down. And that's already a pretty high number.
Right. You also say that interest will hit $70 billion by year 2029, which is around the corner. It's not that far away. What does that mean for taxpayers and also public services?
Well, the 70 billion is just an enormous number. It's hard to get your mind around it. We're not a very big country, and we certainly don't have a huge economy like some others. Mm-hmm. So the 70 billion is definitely heading us to the point where the international money markets are going to be saying, how much longer should we support these guys? And that's an amazing thing when you see a country like ours that has tremendous resources, right, of every kind, mm-hmm. Great people, industrious people, capable people, mm-hmm. but the governments are managing to move us towards bankruptcy as a nation. Mm-hmm.
Where, in your opinion, where is all that money going?
Well, that's a good question. I think that when it comes to deficit spending, there's different kinds. And if you're doing something that has a lasting sort of impact, like you're building something major that's going to produce income is necessary or necessary to produce income. That's one thing. But you're just spending it on increased government spending, more and more public services, and other things that are all about the welfare system, if you'd like to say. When you do that, you're not generating any income and you're not setting up the country to generate income. So that means, of course, it's all in the private sector's hands. But when the private sector gets discouraged about the future of the country, or is actually having trouble accessing their own money markets because of the future of the country, you're looking for a real big problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. So spending is just soaring. You talk about the fact that it's going to be $555 billion this year. That's a huge increase in defense. Is this level of spending sustainable?
Well, the defense is just part of it, but the deficit, it's interesting that we've got this great global banker, and he's supposed to be the guy that can, get our spending under control. And he knows so much about the markets. And it's amazing. Then his first year, the deficit's gone up by $70 billion compared to the Trudeau deficits, which are already high. So it's there's nothing in his main estimates and his statements that is but spending. There's nothing in there that's going to cause increased investment. And so this is a road to oblivion.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you point out obviously that Mark Carney's agenda is, part of the problem. What other concerns do you have for Prime Minister Mark Carney and the way he's approaching spending for Canada?
Well, I think that the main problem is that he doesn't seem to understand that he just keeps spending more and more money, and everything he's spending money on doesn't generate income. And so when you have a situation like that, it's hard to see anything that's sustainable about it. And I'm just astounded.
I think we all are.
What he's doing. But the bottom line is that we have a deficit that's going to be even bigger. But what's really interesting about this is that if you're looking at ways of higher spending, you'd think he'd be worried about how to get more income.
Yes.
Yeah. And yet there's nothing in there, nothing that would cause new investment in the country. It was all about spending. And that's a scary thought, because we're already at a point where businesses in this country are discouraged from new investment, or actually having trouble finding it.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you already kind of touched on this, but where is this road heading, essentially, with all the spending and zero growth? What are we heading towards here in Canada?
Well, as I mentioned, Natalia, when you get to 90% of GDP being a debt, you're getting into the territory of countries that have failed, where the international markets have failed to continue to support it, unless they see some reason for change. And right now, it's all about public sector investment. And here's another thing: it'd be one thing if he was spending this money and incurring this deficit, if there hadn't been a major change in the outlook for our economy. But what he hasn't even allowed for is the huge impact on Canada of the Trump tariffs. So what we're doing is we're increasing our spending precipitously, but also at a time when there's no question about it, the income to government and to Canadians is going down right at exactly that time. And so they add the two together, and it's pretty terrifying.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And there's kind of no end to the spending, it seems like.
Well, and as I say, it's as I said, what makes it more incomprehensible, as I put it in the column, was was that we're doing it at a time when it's clear that our national income is falling, both for people and for government,
Mm-hmm.
because of the tariffs.
Absolutely. In your opinion, what needs to happen outside of the fact that spending needs to significantly decrease? In your opinion, what sort of policies need to be taken into account to decrease the spending and move forward and for a better situation for Canada?
Well, the only way to get Canada out of the hole is to encourage private investment and grow the economy. That's what grows the economy.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, combination of the situation of the tariffs and the performance of government is just preventing that. So, I guess the only way to do that is to change the government.
Right. Oh, we'll see how long Carney will stay in power for, I guess, right?
I keep hoping about this small majority he has, or I guess minority held up by a few others. I hope someday that they look at this situation and say it's not going to be very popular to be supporting this guy for much longer.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what the pain.
Absolutely. But I think, how they say, uh, policies and government decisions don't really matter to you until they actually start affecting you, right?
Yes, that's true. And right now, um, I think Canadians haven't quite realized it. This doesn't hit them yet. Uh, But but when we get to the point where we're no longer able to finance the deficit, and we're getting there,
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden everything changes because you join the ranks of the countries that have failed before in Europe and elsewhere,
Yeah.
and that's hope it doesn't happen, but I don't know how else you can turn it around if you keep spending more and more money at a time when you're taking in less, i.e. the
Mm-hmm.
tariffs. And you're already at a point where there's typically 90% of GDP is kind of that tipping point
Mm-hmm.
for government deficits. And we're getting close to that
Okay.
and closer to it every day. So what I try to do is ring the alarm bell, but I hope to find out who's listening.
Well, we hope more and more people are listening. In your opinion, what if we really do get to that tipping point, who's going to be impacted first? And then my second question, who's going to be impacted the most? Is it small businesses? Is it everyday Canadians? Is it a certain industry that's going to be impacted? So yeah, in your opinion, who's the first to get hit and who's the first to get impacted the most?
Well, first of all, interest rates rise. And so everybody that owes anything on a mortgage or whatever,
Mhm.
it's the people that's going to be affected, and not the public servants.
Mhm.
We keep hiring more of them, by the way, when we should be doing the opposite. It's the people. If your mortgage goes up
Mhm.
and your wages aren't going up,
Mhm.
you know, and this is what we're doing to Canadians.
Mhm.
What's happening when it's amazing that when you think about that we're putting people, because as I say, there's no question that
Mhm.
when the credit rating of a country goes into question, interest rates have to rise to access international money markets, and the only way you can access international money markets is if they're prepared to lend to you.
Right.
And the more that becomes a question, the higher interest rate they want. It's a natural thing, and that means what you're doing is even adding to
Mhm.
the momentum, if you like,
Mhm.
towards a country that fails. And I hate to be so pessimistic, but other countries have failed the same way. And it's interesting that also most of the time they didn't quite realize how close they were but when you get to that 90%, there's a big bunch of alarm bells go off.
Mhm.
And Canada's a wonderful country, so many great people, and to have a government that's doing this to us is just, you know, incomprehensible.
I completely agree. What do you think would happen if, that were to happen? Do you think people are going to leave Canada? Are we going to be seeing foreclosures all across Canada? What do you think is going to happen when
Well,
we
you
get
know,
that alarming
I
number?
don't want to be unduly alarmist about this. I mean, it didn't happen just overnight,
Right.
but the 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 first thing, absolute first thing, the government what would happen. The government would have to drastically reduce spending
Mm-hmm.
because they're not able to borrow. At 90% of GDP, they can borrow, but it's very costly. So the first thing government has to do is and unfortunately, um, it's one thing, as I said earlier, to spend money where it's creating jobs and creating investment and creating and making a difference. When
Mm-hmm.
you're basically kind of wasting away you're spending on interest and sending it abroad to pay for interest payments and so on. You're
Mm-hmm.
not doing that.
Right.
So there's always it's hard to see the hard to be really optimistic about this right now.
Right. I completely agree. And to all our listeners, what is your main takeaway you want our listeners to take from your article and from our discussion today around this topic?
Well, I think what I'm hoping people will do will be to understand what the government's doing to them.
Mhm.
And when the people start to understand that, there's a point at which they're going to there's going to be consequences,
Mhm.
and not the least of which is going to be on the opposition members that are holding up this government.
Mhm.
I mean, when they realize how unpopular it becomes,
Mhm.
um, they'll have to pull the pin, which means you'll have an election.
Mhm. Yeah,
I don't see any other way out.
yeah, absolutely. Gwen, thank you so much for breaking down this very important situation that Canada is facing. It's a serious issue that affects all Canadians, and your article definitely offers a huge wake-up call. To read more about this topic, please visit the link below, Oh Canada, Our Nation's Looming Fiscal Abyss. And thank you everybody for joining. And Gwen, again, it was great to have you. Thank you so much for being here.